Is this working? My name is Amber Wilson. I am the environmental quality advocate with the Wyoming Outdoor Council. It's a nonprofit based over in Lander. We've been around since 1967. And we, in conjunction with Stephen Weaver, are hosting this community forum. So this is a community-hosted forum for the community, by the community. We are not the people making the decision. The goal of this meeting is to come up with ideas and solutions and give you all a background of why we have arrived at this place of needing to consider cuts to the recycling program. And the goal is for us, after hearing this background, to have a discussion and think about little pieces of ideas. Nobody has to have the golden ticket, obviously. If it were that simple, we would have solved it already. So we're just looking for ideas. Nobody needs to be nervous. I know we have a podium up here, and this is being live streamed. And we'll have a YouTube video available afterward that folks can watch online. But this is a very low-key meeting. This is meant to be a discussion. Since there are so many folks, we had you all sign in when you got here. And if you said that you would like to speak, I'll read your name as I go down the list and just call, and you can come up here, come to the mic. Please speak into the mic since it is being live streamed. Even if the folks here can hear you, the people on camera probably can't hear you. And we have a timer up here for 5 minutes. So you can use that 5 minutes to ask a question, to share a comment. You don't have to be up there the whole 5 minutes. But when that clock gets to 0, please have a seat. And if we have more time at the end of the night, then we'll take some more comments or some more questions. So don't be shy. Also, I want to add, if you do have a question, we have Andy Fry here, who's the superintendent of the Solid Waste District, which is the district that is making this decision, and also several of the board members that are on the board of directors for the district. So they might be able to answer your question. If not, we can look into it and get back to you. And you gave me your email, so I can get back to you that way. So again, this is a solution-oriented meeting, so I'd like to avoid debating or venting. That's not going to get us anywhere, so please just offer constructive ideas or constructive questions if you would. Let's see. Amy over here in the corner, she's going to be taking notes. So we listed up here the challenges. These are the 3 main things that are causing the disposal district to have to consider the cuts to the recycling program. Number 1, and Andy will cover this in detail, but number 1, the disposal district's budget. Currently, they spend $600,000 per year on our recycling program, which is 14% of the district's budget, and so that's a pretty good chunk. And the volume that is actually recycled is about 5% of the total waste stream. So it would be nice if we could find a way to increase that volume so that $600,000 is more worth it. And then on top of that, the cleaning and sorting is currently done by community entry services. And because of a recent rule that was passed, community entry services now has to pay their clients minimum wage, and they have a very limited budget. So they can't afford to keep paying minimum wage to their clients to continue the sorting as is. And so with their departure, if they do have to depart, so that's a 2-part question there. How do you get them more funding? And or if they're not going to do it, who does it? Because that's an additional cost if we have to sort it or we have to pay someone else to sort it. So those are the 3 main things. Andy will cover it in detail, like I said. But just keep that in mind. And also on the back side of your agenda is kind of a fact sheet that lays that out a little bit more as well. So hopefully that's helpful. And again, feel free to ask questions during your time to speak. And Amy will also be taking notes up here, and we'll take a photo of that. If you are on Facebook, we started a community Facebook page called Recycling Community Fremont County. That's listed at the bottom of your agenda here. So go ahead and like that, and you'll get the notices that we post on there, and we'll take pictures of the notes that we take tonight and post those up there as well. And that's where you can also go to see the live stream from the Lander Forum that was held on the 7th, and also the YouTube video that will be made tonight. With that, do you want to add anything, Stephen? I'm sorry.
Just a few housekeeping issues, since there's some people here that probably haven't been in City Hall before. There's bathrooms outside this door. There's also a drinking fountain here, and there's one out here in the front. So we welcome you to here to Riverton City Hall, and hopefully we can have a great discussion. And are we going to turn it over to Andy now? All right, Andy, take it away.
A lot of similar faces from the last few meetings, so I'm going to bore you with the same talk. I'm Andy Fry. I'm with Fremont County Solid Waste Disposal District. Can you guys hear me all right? Is that a little better? Yeah. All right, so before we get into discussions on recycling, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on Fremont County Solid Waste Disposal District. Not too often do people know that much about us. So just some background on us. We are the solid waste disposal district for all of Fremont County. So what does that mean? Approximately 9,400 square miles, 43,000 people. We provide solid waste disposal with 20 facilities, 4 landfills, 3 large-scale transfer stations, 10 rural transfer stations, and 3 primary free recycling facilities. We have other small-scale recycling facilities throughout outlying communities as well. And within the larger cities. The district office is at the Lander landfill. Our operational policy is established through a 9-member volunteer board. So there's a lot of people here tonight that seem to be passionate about recycling, maybe about solid waste. There's vacancies advertised every November, and I know the commissioners would love to get some more applicants. Quite often there's one applicant for one vacancy, so there's not a big fight. We'd love to see more of you guys get involved. The board meetings are held once a month. Regularly scheduled board meetings are the 3rd Monday of every month. They start at 9:30 in the morning at the Lander landfill. Funding for our facility is provided by 2 revenue streams. One is the mill levy. 3 mills, the maximum allowed by statute, which is important. A lot of people continue to say, ask more from the mill levy. We are getting the maximum right now. Historically, the mill levy has made up about 50% of our operating budget. This year, that will not be the case. We'll talk about that in a little while. Disposal fees paid for waste disposed of across our scale. Historically, that's about 50% of our operating budget. This year, it'll probably take over as the primary source. The district maintains a large, now it seems like I'm loud, I can hear myself. Is it, okay. All right. The district maintains a large long-term liability associated with the operation of landfills. Landfill closure costs tend to cost in excess of $100,000 an acre. Minimum of 30 years groundwater facility and air monitoring is required by the solid waste district after the closure of a landfill. That's a minimum. 30 years, there's likelihood of us stopping at 30 years is probably not realistic. I know in a little while Craig McComey will get up and say, it could be less. He's with the DEQ. It likely will not be less, and at some point, 30 years after 1996, Craig and I will have an answer to our debate. The most recent estimate for the closure and post-closure care for our facilities, for our landfills, is $15 million. That's current value. This does not include the costs associated with developing new landfill space. So this is just fun facts, I guess. Good information for everybody to better understand our financial situation. So now on to recycling. Fremont County recycling information. Recycling in Fremont County is completed through a cooperative effort. Obviously the district's involved, but the city of Riverton is very heavily involved. They run a curbside program. Their volumes are probably 60% of our overall program. Community entry services, very, very invested and involved. They run cardboard collection routes in the city of Riverton. They help out in Lander and Riverton with sorting and managing. They transport one of the recycling collection trailers in Lander as well. There's self-haulers and commercial haulers. There's a handful of commercial haulers in Fremont County. Wyoming Waste is a little bit involved. I know Hopper Metals is involved, and others as well. There's some smaller scale curbside collection groups in Lander. So on to the more detailed recycling information. Standard recyclables, which is really why we're here today, includes the following: plastics, mixed paper, corrugated cardboard, tin cans, aluminum beverage cans, and glass. A little additional information on these items. The plastic, well, where do they all go? Who's buying them? Who wants them? End users. Plastic, it ends up in Asia. We send it from here, Salt Lake City, West Coast, and then on to Asia. Mixed paper goes to Salt Lake City, where insulation companies use it. Corrugated cardboard goes to the West Coast. We pay to truck it out there. Tin cans and aluminum beverage containers, we bale and bid out to local metal dealers. And glass, we just use within our landfills. We crush it and use it in place of road-based materials. Other components of our recycling program include yard waste and hazardous waste. Yard waste includes grass clippings, leaves, branches, garden waste, old hay, manure. Hazardous waste is used motor oil, antifreeze, electronic waste, lead acid batteries, and paint. Why am I telling you this? All of these items within our recycling program are currently free, and they all come at a cost to the solid waste district. Program rates, so involvement or usage of these programs. The most recent diversion rate calculated for Fremont County shows a total diversion of 12%. 12% of our waste stream is being diverted from the landfills. That includes everything, not just your standard recyclables, but that includes your yard waste and green waste, your hazardous waste, and standard recyclables. The most recent recycling rate calculation is 5%, as Amber talked about. 5% of our waste stream is being recycled. That's with respect to standard recyclables. That's pretty low. So that's in the neighborhood of 1,600 tons per year. And to put that into perspective, we landfill about 130 tons per day. So on to the reasons for our recycling program review. It's a continued effort with improving our operational efficiencies for the solid waste district. Over the last 4 years, we've taken a really hard look at our program to better understand it and see where potentially we were being wasteful prior. Some of the changes that have been implemented already that allow us the luxury of continuing this program right now include reduction in hours of operation impacting everybody in Fremont County. The primary facilities at Lander, Riverton, and Sandraw went from 7 days a week down to 5 days a week. The DuBois landfill and transfer station went from 5 days a week down to 3 partial days per week. The rural transfer stations went from 7 days a week down to 1 partial day per week, some sites twice a month. Again, this has impacted everybody in Fremont County. Reduction in staffing. The solid waste district has reduced our overall staffing numbers from 45 FTEs down to 24, so just about in half. We closed one of our transfer stations, the one located outside of Hudson, and we converted from bale fill to what they call loose fill or compaction in place landfilling. This has allowed us to increase our airspace utilization in our landfills by over 50%. What does that mean? We're now putting 50% more waste into the same footprint we were prior, extending the life of our landfills where we can. Diversion of the countywide waste stream to the Lander landfill. Why are we doing that? Lander's landfill is bound by a date and time instead of by a volume. It has a permitted volume, but through an administrative order on consent with Craig's group at the DEQ, we're going to have to close that a little early because there was minor defects to groundwater. And it's an online landfill. Craig will probably get up and it's not a debate, Craig, so you actually can't respond to any of my comments. So again, what does that mean? Lander landfill is going to have to close in 2024. We're just putting all the waste that we can into that. We're mothballing essentially our other primary landfill, which is the Sandraw landfill, which extends the life of that landfill substantially. When Lander's landfill closes in 2024, it'll convert over to a transfer station. So they'll still have the same type of opportunities for waste disposal as they do today. So other reasons for our recycling program, Amber talked briefly about it, and we may hear more from Community Entry Services as we go on, but there have been legislative mandates, federal mandates that have required, or that implemented by the state of Wyoming, have impacted the ability of CES to maintain their current involvement in the recycling program. It's really up in the air if there will be a future involvement with them unless there's other funding mechanisms made available. This change alone may require the solid waste district to hire 3 additional staff members if the program is run as it is today. What does that mean, 3 additional staff members? That means over $160,000 a year when you figure wages and benefits. So on to financial challenges, the fun stuff, right? The district's portion, again, just the district's portion of the current program, the current recycling program, is approximately $600,000 a year. Again, as Amber said, she's getting rather good at this. From after this meeting, I'm sure she'll just do this. But that represents 14% of our allocated expenses for fiscal year 2015-2016. 14% of our expenses on 5% of the waste stream. One of the reasons we're struggling with the current program. Hiring additional staff members, a minimum of what we've anticipated is 3 staff members. Again, a cost of $160,000 plus. The tax valuation in Fremont County has dropped over the past few years, resulting in a reduction of our allocation from that mill levy. 3 mills of the levy in the past has, oddly enough, been about $3 million. The county has let us all know that we're going to see a reduction between 27 and 30%. What does that mean? The solid waste district is going to lose between $800,000 and $1 million out of the operating budget. So increase in expenses, decrease in revenue, thus the struggle. Even though the recycling discussions, at least through local media, has only come to light with a lot of you recently, the solid waste district has been looking at this for a number of years. We contracted with a third-party consultant, a solid waste professional consulting group, to review our program. They led us down the path of a lot of the implemented efficiency changes already. In there, they suggested change to the current recycling program because of the inefficiencies. So honestly, we've been talking about it since late 2013, early 2014. As the decision grew closer, the media took a little bit more interest in it, and here we are today. The recycling committee that was created within our board of directors is made up of about 4 people from our board. I've worked pretty closely with them, probably weekly, if not bi-weekly, for about the last 6+ months, trying to look at different alternatives for a recycling program. A list of the options that we've looked seriously at and put pencil to paper to include the following 9. The district running the current program, the district funding to assist other entities within the programs, such as community entry services, privatization of the current program, district operation, again, of the whole program, allowing CES to back out, district operation with a reduction in commodities, which is what we've leaned towards most recently, privatization with a reduction in commodities, district operated commingled commodities. What does that mean? Instead of sorting your commodities, we would just bale them all together and ship them out, which oddly enough you have to pay to get rid of because somebody's going to have to sort it. There's certainly a cost associated with that. So district operated commingling, contractor or privatization for commingling, charging for participation with the district operation, and potentially privatization with charging for participation. So that's just a handful of the ones that we really looked hard into. Of course, we're going to talk about a lot of different options tonight. One of the potential program changes that the committee had recommended to the board for consideration included discontinuation of a handful of the standard recyclables, such as the plastics, paper, corrugated cardboard, and glass. Sounds like a lot, right? That included a continuation of aluminum beverage cans and tin cans, grass clippings, leaves, branches, yard waste, old hay and manure, used motor oil, used antifreeze, electronic waste, lead acid batteries, and paint, as well as your scrap metals and freon-containing appliances. That might not sound like a lot. Just to put that a little bit further into perspective, we started accepting electronic waste at no cost November 1st. Prior to that, we used to truck out about a semi-load of electronic waste out of Fremont County quarterly at a cost of between $3,500 and $5,000. Once we implemented the free electronic waste recycling, November 1st of 2015, we started trucking it out monthly. Since then, it's grown to twice a month. And a lot of times, well, with rates going up a little bit, we're spending about $5,000 per truckload that goes out of Fremont County. So the district is certainly invested and involved with this program. On to the timeline information. Obviously, we're here tonight, so the district hasn't made any decisions. They've decided to table any formal discussions or decisions on the recycling program until the May meeting, which is, I believe, May 16th, the third Monday. Allowing these public forums, some of the stakeholders to be involved and come up with other solutions. Why May? So just like the Fremont County Solid Waste Disposal District, the city of Riverton, the town of Hudson, the town of Pavilion, the town of Shoshone, and other municipalities have a fiscal year that starts July 1. We're all working on our budgets. We've got to let any of the outlying areas know what changes we may implement so they can account for it within their budgets and make appropriate changes. We've been interacting quite heavily with a lot of the communities, especially the city of Riverton and Stephen Weaver and Lars Baker. I guess that's the end of my dog and pony show. You'll get a chance to ask a lot of questions as we continue on. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. So with that, we'll just go ahead and get started. So again, when I call your name, just come up to the podium, give your up to 5 minutes of comments or questions. And if you said you don't want to speak or you didn't check something on the list, don't worry. Once we get to the people who said they didn't want to speak, we'll have opportunity for folks to raise their hand. So Loretta Heck.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? Here, I'm short. In 4 days will be the 46th anniversary of Earth Day, April 22nd, 1970. This is when it was founded to teach people to clean up the earth. People have been recycling and turning plastic, paper, cardboard, etc. into reusable products. The landfills are being cleaned up and the trash being reduced. My solution for Riverton and the state of Wyoming is to build a factory to turn the recycled goods into a profitable business. The government has grants set aside for this, and I printed out a list for this, for the addresses for that. It will make revenue, jobs, profit, and clean up the landfill. You can sell the products to stores, hospitals, everywhere. After you make a large profit from this, then turn around and give back to the community. Example, pay the people to recycle, give to the schools, clean up the roads, etc. I have spoke to Cindy from the City of Casper Landfill Department. She told me since November she has been talking to Andy Fry about having a baling station built. I said to split the cost of shipping. She told me the cost of recycled bales are 10 to 15 a ton, where trash is 45 a ton, and to ship it, it costs 25 a ton. Right, Andy?
I'm not familiar with their freight rates, but ours are a lot higher.
Oh, okay. She could cut the costs with a factory. We could cut the costs with a factory so we could sell the products made. We need to educate the people on recycling, have businesses, restaurants, and schools, etc. recycle. Bring back recycling appliances. There is trash on our roads, from the washer dryers laying on the sides because the cost to dump them is too high. Have people bring them to Habitat for Humanity store, meaning the ones that are still usable, not the trashy ones, or to the used appliance stores to turn them into reused goods because they can fix them and then resell them. Thank you for letting me talk and bringing a good solution to this problem. Again, my name is Loretta Heck. And sir, here, I want to give you that list. Thank you for letting me talk tonight, and hopefully this was a solution to our problem. Thank you.
Sarah Wiener.
My name is Sarah Wiener, and I'm working at the CES program. And my job is to I'm working at recycling, and I really want to keep my job, but we sort bottles and plastic and paper, and we used to recycle pop cans and that stuff, but that didn't turn out good, so we're not doing that anymore. But we want to keep going our jobs and keep it going, and so we can have a job. So like me and like Jacob or other CS people are working there, so we just want to keep it going. If you have a chance, keep it going. So thank you, Sarah.
Bo Peck.
Good evening. It's good to see everyone so enthusiastic about your guys' recycling program. My name is Bo Peck. I'm with Inner West Paper. I'm based out of Salt Lake City. I am a material broker, and I purchase a lot of the goods that come out of the county and many other counties in the state of Wyoming. Kind of my expertise is moving commodities in rural communities. Our business currently pulls out materials in 8 western states. So we travel all over the West, helping communities with their recycling programs. A couple notes on this program here. I've worked up in Fremont County for about 6-7 years, seen a lot of changes, and I am really impressed with all the changes that have come about over the years. Andy and the board has really overcome a lot of hurdles, and a lot of the citizens don't see the behind the scenes items that have gone on over the years. Everything from adding scales at the landfill and making improvements that ultimately do help the recycling program. This become, in my professional opinion, has grown tremendously, especially in the last 3 years. What hurdles does this county have, and along with any other community in Wyoming? 2 biggest hurdles is transportation and labor. There is no way to get around the transportation end of it. Wyoming is so far from the material markets that it is what it is. I don't know one community recycling program in this state that probably doesn't run without some sort of cash flow coming in from other areas. It is next to impossible. Freight costs are anywhere from $25 to $60 per ton for a lot of the materials. So why does it have to be transported so far? And the answer is volumes and market. So majority of the materials that are coming out of here are paper-based. When you recycle paper, you need one thing: lots and lots of water. A paper mill will go through millions of gallons of water per day. We don't have that here. We don't have that in Utah. That's why we ship a lot to the Pacific Northwest, where they have those resources. Plastics. Why don't we have a plastic recycle that can do it here? A lot of it, there's so many different grades of plastics, and in order to make a program work well, you have to have lots of volume. The plastic out of this county, you're looking on the high end 120 tons and as little as 40 tons per year. And when you have that open to 3 different grades of plastics, it's hard to turn that into a new product. Even if you compile everybody's waste together and have a hub and spoke system where you bring that all in, you still wouldn't have enough to make a manufacturing facility to handle that good, to make a new product. It takes multiple states working together to make a lot of these recycling work. I'll keep that short and sweet, but if you do have any questions afterward, I can help answer any questions as far as the marketing of any materials, transportation, or any different ideas on how to handle it. Love to help. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Bo. Steve Mollett, is that how you say it? Oh.
Good evening. My name is Steve Molt. I'm a resident of Riverton, and I do my household does recycle, participates in the Riverton's program. My background is I know Andy well because we share. We're both on the board of directors for the Wyoming Solid Waste Recycling Association. I'm also with Inberg Miller Engineers here in town. My involvement in the industry is mostly in the landfill and transfer station permitting and design. However, through my association with our board, recycling is very important to our board of directors. I'd say about half of our board members are very avid interest in recycling. My comments when I came earlier, or I had some thoughts to share. I appreciate Andy's comments on what his board has done. We've had some conversations early on through this process, and I appreciate that they've looked at other options, because what we're seeing across the state is there are other options you can look at, none of which is a silver bullet, unfortunately. And in particular, I was curious about his comments on whether or not any of those options. I guess my question to Andy, whether he'd answer it now or later, would be if any of those options looked like they would be any kind of cost savings to what they're doing today. You know, whether it's continue to do the single stream or to do commingled. My firm, through an association with another firm, is looking at a similar study in Gillette and Campbell County. So we're not alone in this county. That they're going through the same issues. It's a cooperation between the county, who operates the landfill, and who handles the recycling station and transfer station, and then you've got the city of Gillette, much like Riverton and Lander, that are participating with the county, bringing in recyclables through curbside recycling, drop stations, those kinds of things. So it's a similar partnership, and their costs are high as well, and they're looking at trying to cut where they can. The expenses are higher than the revenues generated. One thing I will say, what they're looking at is actually increasing fees to continue recycling. If they decide to go that way, we're looking at some options of what that might be to participants in the program. So whether it be voluntary or a countywide assessment, that's an option to just increase the fees, so Andy doesn't have to take it out of his general funds and that kind of thing. And before he said that, I was going to mention that believe there was a recycling study done for the county. I think Lori Batchelder did it out of Denver back in 07, 08, somewhere in there. And I've got a copy in my office, but frankly I haven't looked at it. And I was just wondering if Andy, your board pulled that forward and kind of looked at it just to see if there's anything in there that you could take forward. That's 8 years ago, but maybe there's instead of reinventing the wheel, maybe there's something there you could glean that they were thinking at the time, and maybe it's happened or not happened. I do know, I agree with you, the recycling rate is quite low, and it just is what it is in Wyoming. Some communities are perhaps recycling a little greater rate. Greg McComey, if he has a chance to speak, will be able to shed some light on what some of the other communities are doing, but it's not uncommon to have such a low recycling rate. And I appreciate the big turnout. This is good. I don't have any other solutions other than those are just comments to help Andy. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Sorry for messing up your last name. Linda Dennison. Great. Brad Tyndall.
Yeah, I'm just happy that people are looking at this and that we're conscientiously thinking what we need to do. I think that just my perspective is that a couple things is when, the increase of fees or whatever it takes, I feel like there's a moral responsibility that we have of being on this planet, being in this community, in the state, that we take care of our trash, like be good Boy Scouts. If we have to pay more, we have to pay more. And it's just maybe the sad reality of the modern age that we can't just throw stuff away, especially when it's has negative impacts downstream. So I think paying for is good. The other thought was that I don't know to what extent the Chamber of Commerce can play a part in terms of inviting industries in. I understand that there's definitely, we got to think in terms of the economics of this. We can't just hope that money just pops up and we come up with $600,000 or whatever we need to break even. But my one thought is that inviting very intentionally certain industries into, whether it's glass or plastic or whatever, trying to incentivize those folks to come, saying if our community needs a plastic recycling business, or in the state that we'd maybe work with other communities to try to make at least some sort of break-even solution, whether it's people who make glass or plastic, try to very intentionally say, what does our community need in terms of that type of production or facility in our community. So work with maybe the chamber, saying not just bring something to town, but very specifically, and maybe with a tax reduction or some sort of a benefit, try to design something that we need for our community. I'm glad to hear that we're working with a consultant, because there's so many models out there, having lived in other cities, where there's different models out there, and I'm glad we're looking at different structures. My wife and I came from where we lived in Loveland, Colorado many years ago, and they basically, I'm trying to remember the model that was used, was that they charge you to get rid of your trash, but recycles were free. So all of a sudden you become a recycler. It was a different kind of a model. So you had to pay for trash bags, but the recycled containers, they didn't charge you for all of a sudden you're going, oh, so I'm going to recycle, because that's the way I don't have to get paid. So they kind of switched the economics on us, and it seemed to be effective, and it seemed they got awards and accolades. I don't know if it continued, but one aspect was basically charge for trash, but not charge for recycles, and all of a sudden everybody's a recycler. And so that seemed to work for that community. But anyhow, some thoughts.
Thanks, Brad. Lloyd Eckstein.
I'm Lloyd Eckstein, president of Riverton Community Food Bank plus Lloyd's Repair. What we did many years ago, we went to school in Burlington, Iowa, and there was, they come up, you go to the city and say, okay, I'm moved in, and they say, well, it's going to cost you this much for your stuff, but if you pay $8 over here, you get 3 of these containers, and we'll give you a discount on your bill. Okay, you put your paper over here, your cardboard with a rock on it. We drive by every week, we pick it up, and it looks just like a house trailer. And they got chicken natty, and they throw it in there. And you get a discount on your water bill, okay? That's number one. I don't see why we don't try it here. Number two, I went to work to help a gentleman move to Texas over by Diversion Dam. We hauled off 6 days, 2 times every day to the landfill towards Crowheart, and he gave $5. I talked to 5 or 6 people down there, and I says, how come you're doing it? Why should we? There's nothing here to worry about. There's nobody here to collect. Why should we put that $5 in there? So technically, we hauled a bunch of stuff off. He was going to throw batteries out. I said, no, you're not throwing the batteries away. I'm going to put them in my pickup. I'm going to put your iron in my pickup. I'm going to take it down to Federal Auto, and I'm going to get money for it. And we did. So I don't know, out there by Crowheart, here it is. We take 2 loads every day for 6 solid days, and we do not, he gives $5 in, that little thing. So why? Meanwhile, on Wednesday, here comes a new container. So technically, nobody gave any money. And we need to figure out some way of doing that. If we're hauling it out there by Crowheart, he said, well, it's no biggie. We can haul it out there because nobody's going to charge me. Yes, we charge here and down, and I don't mind paying $5 for a pickup load of stuff. I recycle because we recycled in Burlington, Iowa all the time, and we got a discount on our water bill. I would like to see Riverton. We brought it to Riverton in '03 and said, this is what would work. Your name's on it. You got 30 days. If you don't recycle, your bill goes back up to where it used to be. That gives you, in case you're on vacation for a month. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to see recycling. Yes, it's going to cost us, but I wouldn't mind, even though I live in Gardens North, I wouldn't mind because we recycle. I'm lucky if I put in, for Wyoming Waste, 1 bag every Friday. The rest of it, we haul down there, we wash our cans out, we wash our plastic, we think, you know, we haul it down there. Every time those guys down there know me by heart. Oh, what are you bringing, Lloyd? Yeah, I'm recycling. And we bring cardboard and everything else. So I would like to see it more here. Put up containers out, 3 of them, make them pay, you know, give them a discount if they recycle. If they don't, charge them a bigger bill. That's for this gentleman right here sitting. Get a bigger bill for him, for water, okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Lloyd. Nancy Eckstein? Oh, sure. We'll let Andy answer the question that came up earlier.
So with respect to the conversation that took place here with regards to the Crowheart transfer station, was that a while ago?
Yeah, just about a year ago.
Okay, so the,
It's still there. There's that little bitty square box there that you put $5 in. It's still there.
right.
There's nobody there to stop it or anything like that. So, you know, you can recycle anything you want. They were throwing batteries, they were throwing appliances, they were throwing every kind of garbage in it you can think of. And I'm like, geez, you know, I can get $3, $4 for a battery.
Right. That's wonderful that you did that. The one anomaly with Crowheart Transfer Station is like the Fort Washakie and the Etity and the Arapahoe Transfer Station. Those are run by the Wind River Environmental Quality Commission, which is split, and now the tribes are the Northern Arapahoe tribes running 2 of the sites, and the Eastern Shoshone tribes running the other 2 sites. So we do charge at our facilities. We do offer recycling at our transfer stations. Just to clarify, there is a little bit of a difference. Yeah. You may want to talk about the recycling incentive that is in place, just to clarify that.
Yeah, so just in relation to our recycling program in Riverton, we do give a discount on your water bill for recycling. We have a couple different options. We have curbside recycling, which we're the only one in the county that provides that. So that we'll come by and pick up on 1 week, it'll be the plastics and cardboard, and another week it'll be the cans. Or we have a drop-off stations both at Smith's and at City Hall. So in our discount, if you recycle during the month, anytime during the month, is about $5 per month that comes off of your water bill. So if you scan, we have little barcodes that are attached to the curbside, or if you're going to the drop-off stations, you have a little card, you scan that. If you scan that at least once a month, then you get the recycling discount. And so those are the things that we offer for the city of Riverton. There you go.
That's what it looks like. And they have a little machine there. And all the little stations that you put it in, you push the button, and there's a laser that comes across and you get credited.
Nancy?
Hi, everybody. Hi, my name is Nancy Eckstein. I'm the Vice President of Riverton Community Food Bank, and we work really hard at recycling, not only in the food bank, but in our own home. And we skip the stations. We go straight to I guess it's the baling station or whatever it is that's down here by the ball field. We do that. We wash it and sort it, and we've always tried to recycle for many, many years. One of the things I've been hearing lots of good things, but I think we need to be more aggressive. And one of the things I did last week is I called the EPA down in Denver and asked them, why can't I find grants for recycling? And he said, well, you're looking under the wrong area. I said, what? And he said, well, you're just typing in recycling, right? And I said, yeah. He said, well, you got too much stuff to sort through. He said, you got to look under solid waste management. I found 3 for the tribes and a couple of others for equipment and transportation recycling goods. So they're out there. It took me 3 hours of sorting. One of my suggestions is, I think that like everything, the cost goes up. We haven't increased the costs for recycling. People don't like to pay. So I think if we say, example, if you refuse to recycle, we're going to charge you 30% more on your bill. If you cannot recycle, then you pay 20% and it goes to someplace like CES to pay somebody to sort your recycling, and you put it out and you pay somebody to sort it for you. If you sort it yourself and you take it, well, you pay 10%. And if you take it to the station, you only pay 5%. I think we need to do something like that to make people, you know, recycling, it's got to become a must. Because as human beings, we tend to be, oh, well, take the easy way out every opportunity. That's just human nature. So I think we need to batten down the hatches and say, okay, folks, it's mandatory, you have to recycle, or you pay the consequences. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. 1.
Hi, I'm Juan Layden. I live over in Lander. And I wanted to ask Andy that $80 a ton, what does that reflect? For dumping it as opposed to recycling? What's it reflect? What's actual, what are you doing to incur that cost? No, my understanding is it costs you $80 a ton to put it in the landfill as opposed to $320 to recycle. What is that cost? So the sheep's foot, the scrapers, the compacting, all that on a daily basis. Right. Okay. Does it include the 15 million at the end?
It does. It's all a part of it.
Okay. Does it include changing out the going to a new system where we're going to have it lined and the transfer to that and all that?
Absolutely. We're setting money aside for all of that.
Okay. I'd like to see, we have this manufacturing transportation stream that comes all the way down here, and the last person that gets to touch whatever product ends up having to pay for it, to have it dealt with. I'd like to see a mill levy or surcharge or whatever per ton, half the price of recycling, $150 a ton for everything comes into Fremont County. I don't want the naysayers, oh, well, you can't do it this or that, but the idea that we share the cost, it's not just our waste. This is being manufactured and it's being trucked in here, and they don't pay for that. And I'd like to see them share the cost a little bit. I also think that there's an incredible amount of education that needs to be done. I've talked to you, Andy, years ago about getting the schools involved. We had a assistant superintendent that thought that garbage had nothing to do with our education system. And fortunately, he's no longer around here anymore, but I think that's part of life. It should be part of our education system. And I believe that children in our school systems, every grade should be up there for a few days every year learning about it. They could be doing some of the projects, science classes, figuring out the actual waste stream, like all the stuff that could be diverted, what is actually there. And getting them on board. I know I have a friend, she never wore a seatbelt, and she had a daughter that went to school one day in her 5th grade or 3rd grade or whatever and learned about seatbelts, and she came home and said, Mommy, why aren't you wearing your seatbelt? And she started wearing her seatbelt. And it's got to start early. It's got to be part of our life. So I'd like to see that as well. really active, and there's going to be a lot of resistance because people think that it goes away. Well, like the sign says, it doesn't go away. There is no way. It isn't a moral imperative. We also have a issue with segregating garbage. It's not waste until we make it waste. It's all a resource. So to segregate out some of it and say, oh, well, that costs too much money is kind of, I think it all goes together. Anyway, that's what I want to say.
Thanks, Juan. Having a hard time with the handwriting. There's a Mary or a Nancy? Oh. I'm terrible, but yes, the next person is you. I can see it now.
I've heard quite a few people from other parts of the country say that where I came from, recycling was mandatory, and I know of several places it is. My son lives in Richmond, Virginia, and it is mandatory. I'm a fifth-generation Wyomingite, and I believe in recycling. I mean, we have recycled as much as we could all our lives. I mean, we compost our peelings and so on and so forth, and my rancher parents and grandparents recycled machinery. They used baling wire because it was depression and whatever they could do. And garbage is not a Riverton problem. It's not a Wyoming problem. It's a world problem. The oceans, the Mount Everest, every place is overrun with garbage. And the best solution would be less consumption. However, that's probably not going to happen because there's a vast number of people that are working on consumption. But I have two suggestions. One, well, a couple maybe. Glass was on the original list that I read in the paper, and I don't know why that can't continue to be crushed because it makes such a big part of, I mean, it's so big if it isn't crushed. And I know in Casper they crush it and put it on their dead animal pile to keep other animals out. Also, I think there should be a negative penalty if you don't recycle. Some kind of, I would be perfectly willing to give up the $5 a month too. I mean, we're perfectly, it's nothing really. And if even if only 15, however, I think that, well, I don't know about the stream, you can probably figure it from there, but I know that there are people in the country who bring their recyclables in and put them in the bins. I know of several of my friends that do this, and I don't know whether that's somehow illegitimate or not, but I think it needs to be done. Also, most newspaper now is printed with soy ink, and it's perfectly, according to my daughter-in-law, who's a hazardous waste specialist, it's perfectly safe to compost, and it could be shredded and composted with the yard waste. And that would mean more sorting, but I don't know how to exactly work that. But I also would like to know what would the reduction of these recycling items, what would the savings be, and how many people would lose their jobs, and would the equipment still be available if this program is started again when, say, petroleum is more expensive and so plastic would be more saleable used plastic. Let's see, there was one other I wanted to, well, I can't even read my own writing, so I guess that's all I need to say.
Thank you. Barbara Dickinson.
I'm not too sure how much more I can add. I am in agreement that we do need to recycle. I am assuming that everyone here is in favor of it, all good citizens, and try to keep up your property and
do what you need to do to keep it a good community. The people that need to be here, unfortunately, are not. And I do appreciate the curbside pickup. I'm getting to be an old lady, and I hurt my back, so it really is an advantage. And I think also I would rather add the extra $5 if it meant that we were going to keep the recycling system. I think the thing that really bothers me more than anything else, and I know there's nothing that any of us can do at this point, but I do think that the gentleman talking about the children had a good idea. There is so much waste. I am just appalled at people just buy stuff and they might even use it once or they might not use it at all. They just kind of dump it off to the side and it just accumulates. And our kids are just not taught to be careful or to save or to be able to keep their toys nice. It's just, it's a zoo. I too grew up during the Depression. And I really don't think until I was 5 or 6 years old that I ever had anything really new. I inherited all my cousins' clothes and even their toys. My mother would make new clothes for the dolls, and my dad, I remember, painted the doll carriage. I think what I'm saying is that, yes, we do want to recycle. Yes, we do want to be careful and keep our community clean, but we all need to work on saving our stuff. If our clothes have holes in them, mend them. If our shoes need to be repaired, take them and get them repaired. We're so used to throwing away everything and getting something new. I think that this is wrong, because I'm telling you, we are headed for some very, very difficult times. If you think the free trade is everything good, you better think again. It's going to get ugly. And so we do want to recycle. We do want to keep our community up, but we want to start saving, start taking care of our stuff, and teaching our children that they need to take care of their toys and their clothes, because if we don't do that, they may not have very much. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm going to have another hard time with this one. I think it's Leah or Sarah or I'm having a hard time with the last name. There are only 2 more people on the list, so if your name is not Kate Martin and you said yes, you want to speak. Jean? Is it Jean? Okay, we're going to go to Kate Martin. I don't know.
I would first like to thank everybody in the county. I'm not sure if it didn't surprise the waste disposal folks as to the passion from which recycling has shown itself, and it's the desire of the citizenry. So you have to find solutions. I don't know if you can do this, but we have property tax mill levies. And if you get your tax bill, there are all these different lines, like all the school districts, the waste, solid waste is on there. I don't know if there's any possible way to add a recycling tax levy to our property tax bills. I think it would probably take a vote. But if the citizenry really wants that, they would support that. How about a $500,000? How about a mill? There's $1 million. It's not that you haven't made great attempts to decrease your expenses, because you have, and we admire you for that, thank you. But it's just expensive, and we have to find ways to increase income. I think they've made many efforts to decrease expenses. So nobody likes to hear that. I don't like to hear it, but it's the reality of it if that's what you want to do in your community. So you might want to consider investigating a tax mill levy for recycling. A mill. If you need it, you use it. If you don't, you don't. That's what the county commissioners do every year. We're going to have to pay for recycling. It would be nice to incentivize it in a way that we all do it because we really want to. Some people do it because they don't want to pay, but you should have to pay something. And so there probably needs to be some incentives to do that. I think there's some things that the city of Riverton would be the one, because I'm not sure there's a real recycling plan with the county. I think it's mostly the cities, isn't it, Mr. Weaver? Yeah, but I think there's some fine tuning that could occur there. But this isn't the time or the place for that. The other thing that, and I'm not sure because I don't understand the complexities of the reclamation expense involved with the landfills, and I've heard mention of this 2014 deadline that I think came about in 2003 with the DEQ, and that if you take all the waste and divert all the waste that you have and you divert it to land, you're still not going to fill it, but you still have to pay $15 million to close it. And I don't know if there are certain other reasons, but could you get an extension on that landfill deadline only because then you could extend the amount of time to save up your reclamation funds? I don't know if that's just a crazy thing because I don't know that much about this business. That's yours. I'm just an outsider, looking in saying we want suggestions. We don't just want complaints. And I don't know whether it's, and maybe Mr. Fry can answer this question. Do the tribes use the county landfills or do they take it to Casper?
We receive somewhere in the neighborhood of probably currently 60 to 80% of the waste from the tribes.
Okay, 60 to 80%. So we have 20 to 40% that you could increase. And since we have this landfill that we need to fill up, if we could somehow or another, instead of paying Casper to dump, to get that back in our own county to take care of ourselves. And so perhaps reaching out in certain partnerships with the tribes to try to get that waste managed within the county to you're either paying for it there or you're paying for it here. So if they're paying for it here, again, that adds to some of the income to help cover the cost. So I would suggest reaching out in partnerships with the tribes. I think one lady mentioned that if you have recycle grant requests that you can get them from, and I heard you say the word tribes. And so, so reaching out and trying to work with in that respect, that could be a revenue generating part of a solution. So those are my ideas. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. So that was the last person on the list who said, yes, I want to speak. Maybe you were the name. Yeah, come up. Oh, it's okay.
My name is Frank Tanner. I came into this life at a time and place where the dump was someplace out your back door. I think the people of Fremont County have a right to feel very proud of the program that they developed, and I would certainly hate to see it abandoned. When I was little, my brothers and I earned our movie money by picking up beer bottles and Coke bottles out of the right-of-way along the highways. So I've been recycling all my life. One of the things that we should have done a long time ago was charge deposits on all kinds of bottles and plastic containers. You have to pay it when you buy it. And believe me, if there was a deposit on beer bottles, you wouldn't see the canisters in back of the alley down at Bombers full of beer bottles or any other kind of bottle. So one of the things we should do is be talking to legislators about instituting deposits. The lady mentioned her family recycling, I forget where. But our son lives in Massachusetts. Once a week, they go to the local dump and they deposit everything in a separate dumpster. Just like we separate ours for the people who come and pick it up, they do that too, but they have to haul their own. Yeah, they can hire somebody to do it for them. Right. And the first lady who spoke talked about inviting businesses in to do something. You remember several years ago there was an outfit, I think it was from Idaho, proposed putting in some kind of outfit down by the sale barn to burn all kinds of stuff. And that's certainly something that could be investigated, because I think the University of Wyoming does that with their garbage. Generates electricity. Right. Anyway, if you have to abandon the whole program, which I sincerely hope you don't, and I think you should investigate the freight rates that you might get if you hauled that stuff to Bonneville or someplace over there and loaded it on the train to go with your paper to the Pacific Northwest. Send it to Billings and on that way. So, please do not, whatever you do, do away with the yard waste. You know, that's the greatest thing. I use it all the time. Not only the yard waste, but the bio waste. I challenge anybody to go down and get a bucket full of the bio waste. They'll give you a bucket full. And pick it up, and it's like the richest dirt you ever saw. You know, and everybody in this community should be using those things and gladly paying for them. Now, I get the $5 off my water bill, thanks to Stephen. I'd gladly pay them another $10 if they could recycle and keep it up. So I urge you, it's time we start seeking deposits on things that are recyclable, so that there'll be some incentive for somebody to pick it up and do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Are there any other comments? Yeah, Doug Thompson.
I'm Doug Thompson, Chair of the County Commission. In the Lander Forum, and Kate brought it up today, there's been discussion about, oh, just put this on your tax bill or that on your tax bill. Well, first of all, the county commission can't just put this or that on tax bills. There are processes that would have to go through. Now, as Andy mentioned, their revenue streams are from a 3 mil levy, which is capped, so you can't raise that any. They could raise fees, you know, some amount, but that will, you know, there's an upside of that, so you get more money to cover your recycling. But the downside is every time you raise something, people quit using it. You know, the idea of incentivizing is probably better than penalizing. People like incentives. Now, it was brought up maybe creating another district. That can be done. You could create a Fremont County recycling district. It would have to be proposed, petitioned, and go through the regular process. And then a fee could be set. So that would put the question of recycling before the whole county. Do you want to create a district? And then generally, if you're a proponent of that, you would have, as Kate mentioned, maybe a 1 mil or something. I believe a special district is probably capped at also 3 mils, but I may be wrong there. The statutes of the state of Wyoming have different caps on different districts, different types of districts. So that is an option, is creating a recycling district. I'm not here to advocate that, but there is a process that probably should be looked at. And I mentioned this to Amber over at Lander, is find out what that is. And then as the steering committee maybe moves that toward the top of the list, you can investigate it. I will tell you, creation of a county-wide special district is very difficult. But, you know, if the people of the county feel like this is a top priority, you know, your sales pitch will be easy. If not, well, I can tell you right now, anything that has a tax associated with it has a difficult time in Fremont County, and you all know that, so I'm not telling you anything new. But there is a procedure to do that. But as far as, I think someone mentioned, oh, you can just put $5 a month on people's tax bill, which would be $60 a year. We can't do it. The treasurer can't do it. It would have to come through that district type of a situation. So just for information. What's the percentage of people that might want to tell this? Just not a 50-50. I think it's like 60. They have over 60% of the vote to do that. To create a district. I'm not the elections officer. I'm just a lowly county commissioner. So there is statutory direction for those procedures. But I think, you know, creation of a special district is probably 50. I don't think there's a higher voting majority, you know, like a super majority or something like that. Maybe there's election people out there that can answer that question. So.
Thank you so much, Doug. That's really helpful. Yes.
Hi, I'm Lee Martinez, Riverton City Council, and I have one suggestion, and that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Fry, you said if we kept recycling, you would have to hire 3 people at a cost of $120,000 a year.
Right, and what that referred back to was if community energy services had to withdraw from participation.
I understand that. My suggestion would be that Fremont County Solid Waste District and CES work out a plan where you wouldn't have to hire 3 new people but pay CES to do the recycling and the sorting. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. The next, yes, in the back.
My name is Audrey Tyndall. I love that this whole thing is just based on solutions and people coming up with solutions. That's a nice thing, I think. My suggestion was that we just suspend a decision and allow there to be more time for research, because there's so many great ideas that are coming out of this. I think it would be a shame to sort of put the momentum and the excitement away and just sort of make a decision. I think and my idea was to just perhaps suspend the $5 rebate for now, for a short term, while we allow people to generate more ideas and come up with something, looking at grants, looking at, other ways of taking care of our waste. One thing that occurred to me while I was listening to people talk about the cost is, what is the true cost of not recycling to our environment and to our community and to our children?
Anyone else? So the question is for folks maybe watching on video, how much would be saved by cutting the recycling program? Andy's going to answer that.
So just to make sure I answer your question, is the question if we cut the overall recycling program or if we cut just what it looks like we would be able to save is somewhere in the neighborhood between $300,000 and $400,000 a year. And then the second question was, no, so the cost associated with hiring 3 additional staff was if we were to keep the program as it exists currently. So that continues on with the discussion that if community entry services was to withdraw from the recycling program and the district maintain the program as it currently is, we'd have to hire additional staff. The mixed paper, cardboard, glass, and plastics. And then the next portion of your question, I think, was regarding number of staff. So if we were to reduce the recycling program, it would reduce the need for 2 positions, one of which we have chosen not to fill already. We've been working understaffed. The other one, if we were to pursue that, it would just be the vacancy would be created through attrition. Nobody would be laid off per se. Anyone else? Nope.
Sean Griffin. Come up.
Just real quick, my name is Sean Griffin. I'm the CEO of Community Entry Services. And there's more to that, too, because our clients would lose their jobs moving forward. And our staff would not. They'd be repurposed, reassigned. And then the individuals that we serve that are currently working at the recycling center, I think they number anywhere from, Pat, 8 to 10, maybe right now. We've cut that back. At one time we had, counting our staff in person, served about 24 people in our recycling program. We've cut that back just due to the cuts that we've taken over the last few years as well. So in addition to, if the recycling program was to go away, in addition to the county staff, our staff, the 3 to 4 employees that we have of CES, they would be repurposed, but the individuals that we support, roughly 10 people would lose their jobs and have to either find a job in the community or hang out in our day hab program till something else comes along. And so we're all about trying to keep jobs, but at the same time, we have had increases in our service rates with this new biennium coming on. We're going to be looking at almost a decade since we've had increases, and we haven't been able to increase our staff wages in 3 going on 4 years, and we can't continue to do that. And that's why we've had to look at our each and every one of our business enterprises, and recycling being one of them, that we've actually had to subsidize those losses over the years, and we're at the point now we really can't do that any longer. And with the new federal rates mandating increased wages for the folks that we support, we anticipate that's going to add about $100,000 to what we're going to have to try to come up with somehow, somewhere.
The city of Riverton would probably have possibly a couple people that would lose their jobs too, because we have the curbside recycling program. If that went away, then we would have to do away with that to make up for the difference of, because now we'd be taking these recyclables, and instead of diverting them, we would be putting them into the landfill at additional cost of about $87,000 a year, and so we'd have to make up that difference.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I'm like other folks, I hadn't intended to say anything, but such an interesting conversation. I've really enjoyed it this evening. My name is Ron Warbness. I've been the mayor for the last 4 years and then turned it over to Lars Baker. And I don't know how many meetings that over the years that we've had on solid waste. When Mr. Herberkite was alive, we'd go round and round and round, and Howard Johnson and the numbers they would throw out, and it was just like arm wrestling to try to figure out how to solve it. So this isn't a new problem, and I'm like Frank, I'm very supportive of continuing it if at all possible. I think it's just critical. I think it sends the right thing to our young people that are coming up, and to the world that we want to not only recycle, but I think repurpose is another way to look at things. I remember when I was growing up around here, my grandfather and I would go out to the garbage dump at that time, and usually we would come back with more than what we went out with. And he had lived through the Depression, and their philosophy was waste not, want not. And boy, they didn't waste anything, I'll tell you what. And I think we've just grown so rich and so complacent in so many different areas that we just are running over. I remember when I was in Vietnam, why the Vietnamese would go through our garbage dump just for a colored picture that they could put in their home. That they didn't have anything like that, and the GIs would throw stuff out. And so we're just such a rich country that this is a problem, I guess, that we have. I would like to separate out between the solid waste district and its recycling and the city's recycling. I think the city needs to continue to recycle at least the glass. It's not costing us anything. You just put it in a pile, is my understanding, and crush it, and then you can use it for road base and whatever. And glass is a lot heavier than any of the other material that you're trying to recycle, so I'd encourage that. I think the disposal fee makes a lot of sense. When I go down and buy a new set of tires, why they charge me $2 a tire to dispose of it. Well, it's the same thing that we were talking about out there. I'm real skeptical too when Mr. Fry gets up and gives numbers out and whatnot, and I've been around the city and listening to these discussions long enough that sometimes the fuzzy numbers and the timelines are really, they seem to squash around and they're really hard to pin down. And you know, what the cost is and where it's going and on and on and on. I don't know how you get a tighter handle on it. I think he's doing a good job at this time, but that's a concern that you just, I remember we used to talk about the landfill, and we had to recycle so that we could keep things out of the waste stream so that we didn't fill up the landfill. Now they're telling us that, no, it's not a problem. The landfill's got plenty of room. Everything we can put in it is fine. And which is it? So I don't know. It's a serious problem, but I get the $5 off as well, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Stephen. So anyway.
Thank you, Ron. Is there anyone else in the back?
Hello, my name's Visor. This is like deja vu all over again. I was involved with Riverton Recycle program from the beginning. Ron, you were there. Bill's got to be turning over in his grave on this one. Yeah. All of these things have come up. All of these things have been talked about are things that we went round and round and round. There was a very motivated group of relatively intelligent people that really cared, and this is all the what we've protected. I do have a question for you, Andy. And as I recall, when Fremont County went to the baling stations, the purpose of that was, it was sold to us, all that equipment, on the premise that this is going to reduce, that that's the most efficient use of space. And now we're being told that that's the least efficient use of space. As a taxpayer and a consumer, I'm wondering which time we got sold a bill of goods. I was just wondering, what were we sold a bill of goods in the first place? That was just, so why did that take place? Yeah, go ahead, because I'm curious, I'm sure other people are too.
So the question is, why have we converted 2 balers in 2004 and then switched away from them in 2014? And the response to that is that at the time it was the best technology for the area. You know, Wyoming has a lot of wind issues, that built into it, but also it was believed that the balers, which can generate 1,100 pounds per cubic yard, so we'll get into the weeds here a little bit in order to truly answer your question. So the balers can generate about 1,100 pounds per cubic yard for density. They can compact the bales to that. The loss is when you transport bales, they loosen, and then you try to build a landfill. You're trying to build a airtight facility or an airtight landfill with cubes that are not true in dimension, so you lose airspace in between those. And what we've found, and technology, of course, is improved, and the waste compaction equipment is increased, and you can use GPS and other means to check it, and that's what we do. And so you weren't sold a bill of goods. They were depreciated out over 10 years. We still continue to use the balers to manage a lot of our waste streams, such as recyclables. So they were truly used. They were advantageous at the time, and now we've found that there's better technology. No, and it didn't work as well as it. No, it did work very well, and it advanced the landfills beyond what the compaction was at that time. It was an improvement, and now we've improved beyond that.
Okay. That's cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. One of the things that came up round and round and round, and obviously one of the first things we'd always talk about is how your education. You've got to educate people about it. Well, let's face it. Wyoming is a state of independent, libertarian-minded people, and a lot of them, they were raised their entire lives as members of the disposable society. They're not going to change. How do we induce people? How do we incentivize people to change? Well, some people will change if they just see if you can educate them, or re-educate them or indoctrinate them or whatever. Choose your own term. Some people you can incentivize with breaks on the bills, but let's face it, $5 on your water bill. If somebody is not inclined to recycle in the first place, they're not even going to pay attention to $5. That's a total joke. Somebody who's who's inclined to but doesn't get around to it, or that might be the little final straw that gets them to do their civic duty. You can use, we've heard talk here, we talked round and round and round and round about punishment, negative incentive, of charging people not to recycle. Ultimately, someday that's what it's going to be. You're going to have your per bottle, your container costs, and you're going, for every bottle and every can, you're going to have to pay a deposit on. But there's also going to be punishment for not using it. The problem with that is there's a downside. As a business person, a landowner, a commercial landowner, and Kate, you have the same problem. Everybody that doesn't want to pay, they just come dump it in my commercial container. Well, no, that's illegal, yeah, but Riverton Police Department really couldn't care less about theft of services. To them, it's not a significant issue. So that's something that when they started talking about tipping fees, that was one of the conversations that came up. You're going to see everybody using every spare draw in the county to dump their garbage. And the county sheriff really doesn't want to spend the money to have to try and enforce that. I mean, realistically, how can they? I don't have answers. I wish I did. Like I said, I was involved with the committee from its inception until it finally petered out. I really wish we'd seen some of these faces involved with our committee. Maybe it'd still be going. Maybe we would have been able to avoid some of the problems we're having now. I would like to see something reformed, but having spent years in it, working 80 hours a week, running a business and trying to take time out to be involved with that, I can see why it petered out, because there just wasn't enough community involvement. Nobody took it seriously. Let somebody else do it. The committee? It was a voluntary committee. I don't think anybody has the legal authority to do that. I don't know. Commissioner Thompson and Mr. Weaver, these folks that have a better idea on what's legal, what the government can legally force people to do. The problems we're facing is we're a disposable society. We're an extremely spoiled society. We're lazy. There was a letter to the editor the other night in the paper, elderly lady, who said, get rid of it, the sooner the better. It's just such a damn nuisance. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? Some people you're never going to convince. There are people you will convince. Until people start seeing what it's going to cost them down the road. You said, how much an acre? Yeah. I remember this started 20 years ago. Bill Urbicite was starting this stuff. I remember going to a meeting of the library 20 years ago, and 20 years ago, the cost per acre to build new lined landfill was, I don't remember, hundreds of thousands of dollars an acre then. And nobody wants to spend money, but they're willing to delay till next week. They'll pay $100 next week if they can get out spending 10 today, because they don't worry about next week. I could be dead before next week. I don't know. I would like to see something come out of this, at least a group of people that get together and start trying to deal with it again. But like I said, all of these problems are things that we went around and round and round about, and we kept running into the same stone walls. We looked at local pre-processing. That was one of our objectives was, it comes into Fremont County, let's process it here, let's reuse it, let's resell it. And like what you were talking about, there are challenges to doing that. Volume, water, things like that. Getting people to sort their garbage. People are going to sort their garbage. I just throw it away. I don't know. Didn't need to come up here and rant, but one thing, like I said, $5, that's a joke. If you're going to give people an incentive, you got to make it a real incentive. And I know there was tremendous resistance within the city to that. I'm not going to pay people to, you're not going to give people a discount to recycle. And the niggardly $5 discount is pretty much of an indication of the city's lack of resolve in that regard. But thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we have two hands. I'm gonna have Doug Thompson come up first, and then you. And just while we're transitioning here, on the note of having another committee of people working on this, we do have a stakeholder committee that the Wyoming Outdoor Council has convened, and that's just one option. We did this so that we have one group at least looking at it, but we hope that all of you will also get together in your circles and have these conversations and come to the May board meeting with some kinds of ideas. But just so you know, I meant to mention that at the start, and I can elaborate on that a little bit at the end. But Doug.
Yes, I addressed the taxation, scenario. Well, the regulatory scenario has an underpinning of statutory authority. Within Fremont County, municipalities who do have a limited home rule, in other words, they can make their own rules. Municipalities can require recycling. They can do that. Sorry to put that monkey on you back there. But within the county, there are limitations on what you can make people do. Probably if you wanted to go down that road, and I have never been that advocate, you would have to zone. And when you zone, then you can put regulations in place. Zoning has never fared well within Fremont County, but it's the same thing. There are statutory procedures for taxation. There are statutory procedures and limitations for regulatory action. And that's, when the the people were saying, well, let's make them do it. Well, that's why those things are limited in Fremont County and across the state. And that's why I go back to incentives and education are two, I wouldn't say they're 100% effective, but it's a pretty good place to start, because people do stuff. If you put some money out there, they will do stuff. You just got to make sure it's the right amount and somebody can afford it. So making people is a difficult task. Do stuff.
Thanks, Doug. Loretta?
I've heard some good arguments here today. Now, what I wanted to say is, you said you want to penalize people for not recycling, or it should be mandatory. In the state of New York, it is a law. If you do not recycle, you will be fined, and then you will be thrown in jail. But I don't know if anybody's been on the East Coast, New York City, or say New Jersey, Atlantic City. Go there, or look on your webcams or the internet. Google it. Their landfills are full. So what are they doing, say in New York and Jersey? They're putting it on barges and throwing it into the ocean because their landfills are full. That's why they made a law. Now here, no, the law, no. Because we are a small community, we can educate people on recycling. Lord, I get passionate about this. Show them how many trees it takes to cut down. I'm echoing. Show how many trees it takes to cut down to make paper, cardboard. How much oil does it take to make those plastic bottles? This is how we need to educate people. Yes, I lived in San Diego for a lot of years. We have earth fairs there. I don't know if we could do that here, say in the city park. Have people come in. Now, I mean, not radical environmentalists, okay? Like, Greenpeace. I used to be a Greenpeace member. But anyway, and do not hate me for that. Andy talked to me. He knows who I am. So anyway, have people just educated on this. And even the kids are going to be our future on this. Yeah, I don't know what they do in the schools, but one person said, teach them, like in the science classes, just have an environmental class. Show the children how the air is being polluted. Somebody said they wanted an incinerator. No, that will cause air pollution. The water's here. If you go in the mountains, you can drink our waters here. The air is cleaner here. I grew up on the East Coast, near D.C. It is filthy there. It is so filthy there. The air here is cleaner. Educate the people. And yes, I said if there's not a profit, because I know it's a business. But honey, please, and I called you honey, please listen to me, okay? Yes, I know it costs money because I do have a degree in business. That's why I said maybe the factory will bring the jobs, the revenue. Take the people, that are doing it now. Pay them. It will not take a month to make your profit. It might take a year. But in the long run, it will create jobs. It will clean up that landfill. Okay, I understand a lot of stuff cannot be biodegradable, cannot break down. Okay, there. I had to say something else. Thank you.
Thanks, Loretta. Is there anyone else for their first time? I didn't do that. So just to note that we're looking at the clock. We have 20 minutes left, so no.
I'm John Miller. I live in the county. One question I had from reading the materials is I'm seeing that the recycled stuff is being filled with garbage. Those things are in the wrong place. Something's wrong with that. We shouldn't be getting garbage in our recycle bins. something very interesting I heard that I've thought about for years as I walk down the stairs, the aisles of these stores, and they're, you know, everything's containered. And yes, I know in the end it will come back to what I pay for my product, but I believe what I heard tonight in these manufacturers that are supplying all these products, they also share in the problem of getting rid of them. I think that needs to be investigated. I don't even know if that's legal. You know, you don't put it on the store over here, and you don't bring it in our county until you pay that price. I don't even know if that can happen. I am wholly in favor of deposits. I couldn't figure out when I was a kid that went away. It just made no sense because I too picked up bottles, lots of them. They were worth some money. So, you know, I guess that's what I had to say. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Greg, did you want to talk? No responding.
I wanted to use the time he didn't use, but. So mine's going to be a bit of a shotgun. First, I'd like to commend the county on the strides they've made. Solid Waste District, it's not an easy job. I enjoyed Ron's questions about sold a bill of goods with the balers and whatnot. That was PA there. That was pre-Andy. So, and actually there is a reason for that. The department actually, I work for the DEQ, by the way. One of my hats that I wear is the state recycling coordinator. I also oversee the closing of the landfills and the regionalization of landfills throughout the state. So one of the reasons that they did that was because of litter issues that they were having in Lander, and perhaps at Sandra as well. The department required them to get a handle on the litter, so they implemented balers as a means to do that, which is quite effective. One of the things that Ron said that I was interested in is you know, which is better. Well, with a good baler, you can get about 1,200, you know, to go back in the weeds with Andy, about 1,200 pounds per cubic inch. So you have a bale that's very tight. One of the benefits of baling is that you don't have to cover the working face. Dirt's your enemy in a landfill. The more dirt you put on, the less airspace you have, things like that. So balers, that's why balers are also good, as well as, you know, the litter issues. But with compactors now, and what Andy said that piqued my interest is using GPS so that you know you're putting the right amount of dirt down. We have landfills in the state that are 1/3 air, 1/3 dirt, and 1/3 garbage, highly inefficient. If the county's using new compactors, that's probably not a bad way to go, as long as they're maintaining and not you know, maintaining their litter issues. And like I said, it's going to be all over the board, but I heard so many good comments. Thanks everybody for showing up. Really enjoyed a lot of the stuff. You really brought up some good points. One of the things that we talked about was incentivizing. There's two ways to incentivize. You know, there's the rebate that you guys use, and then there's also the incentivizing where if you don't do it, you're charged. Teton County charges $250 a ton for waste that comes in unsorted, $125 a ton for waste that comes in sorted. That's a reverse incentive, if you will, and you know, and a lot of people will think, well, they'll get a lot of contamination or so, or you know, it's a pass-through cost from one of the people that are building out in the community. But what really happens is that guy can't compete with the guy that's sorting it because he can now pass that savings on to his client. So that's how you kind of get to that. The city's rebate system is kind of interesting. One thing that I can't remember, Ron, if that was you or not that mentioned that, but with respect to can we charge everybody, Laramie, Cheyenne, Gillette, and I'm missing one, all charge for recycling. What we did in Gillette when I was up there was I put the money on the bill. Everybody paid it. You didn't have to recycle, so you can't force them to recycle, but you do charge them. So if they don't want to use the service, they pay regardless. What I heard, and the reason I think that would work in this town, I know you guys like your rebates, but I heard more people say they'd give it up to keep the program than would keep it. So take the rebate out and charge everybody for recycling. In Cheyenne, for instance, it's $7 a month. You get a can. What you're not seeing in Wyoming, and it's very expensive to purchase cans. It can cost you several $100,000, but you do pay as you throw. So you get a big can or a medium can or even a small can, and that price is according to the can. So you get a big recycling container. The other way to keep that down, which Riverton, this is all for Riverton's benefit, Lander is a tough animal because they don't have their waste collection. It's privatized. But with Riverton, you know, with the different can sizes, there's that, but you also minimize your collection. You know, you can recycling, you can go every other week or things like that. There's all kinds of ideas, and I know Steve and these guys are all looking at this stuff. So one thing I would caution, because I'm going to run out of time very quickly, and I said this in Lander. The thing about recycling is, okay, well, the commodity markets, they go up and down, as you guys know. Right now, we're in a lull. We're in an extended lull in the commodity markets. That's what's killing you. Oil being down is killing plastics. You have to find the local markets to speak to you. I've looked into bringing industry in. There's no economy of scale here. You could collect every recyclable in Wyoming, and you're not going to get a company here. We don't. There's more people in Colorado Springs. They do more garbage, per year than the entire state of Wyoming. So, you have to develop local markets, glass, recycling for landscaping, cardboard for animal bedding, things like that. Find those uses. But the one thing I would caution is if you do away with your program, it's extremely hard to get those customers back on when the commodity markets do come up in the future. Right now, Lander, Andy's wanting to use the extra airspace. I don't know. I don't think the department would entertain Lander going on farther. They do have some contamination. They're right above a river. And the downside is, so right now the Lander airspace is valuable. Well, how's Sandra space? When you guys finally do move everything over into your landfill over here, is that space not going to be extremely valuable? So diversion is important then. So because of that, Lander might not be as valuable. You want to get everything in there because he's trying to get as much waste and money and revenue as you can. It's going to be the exact opposite when you move Sandra. You're going to want to keep that landfill open as long as you possibly can. Diversion will play a critical component. The problem the county has is Andy doesn't get any money from all the revenues, and the things you guys divert, you actually cost him $80 at the scale every time you divert a ton. They don't realize the revenue, so that's why it's difficult again for the district. I have 1,000 other things, guys, but if you guys, like Amber said, there is a stakeholders group. They're looking at different options. Hopefully the board will delay the decision. I know it came at a bad time, Andy, with budgeting and everything, but if they can delay that, I think you can find efficiencies at $600,000. I did about 1,500 tons a year more in Gillette than they do in the county here, and my annual costs were about $350,000. So I think there's efficiencies that you can find to get the 350 down. You had some great comments, ma'am, I must say. And you're right about the numbers. The numbers, as Ron pointed out, are all over the place. They're not concrete. Your baling costs are $60,000 a year just to bale recyclables for the power. That's crazy. I talked to a baler manufacturer today. There's more efficient balers out there. The problem is the upfront capital costs. So now you're back to, can you get some grants for that? Because a grant is a one-time fix. It's not going to help you. But if you can do a capital purchase with that grant, okay, that's going to help. But just to get a grant to keep it alive one more year, that just buys you one more year. So, yeah. Right, yeah. So, but I'll jump off. Love to talk to anybody if they want to chat about this. Like I said, it's the district is doing an incredibly good job. When I jumped on integrated planning in 2008 or 9, Andy, you had about $300,000 in the bank to do these. They've got about 7.3 roughly thereabouts in the bank now. So with the $80 a ton, they went from 0 a ton to 80 overnight. So with that, once you get to that build out of where you have the line still and you have all these things paid for, now you should have enough revenue to support a program and scale back your costs potentially in the future. The other idea is waste energy, bad idea. So you lack the economy of scale for that. They run on about 500 ton a day. You don't get near that. You heard Andy, you do 130 a day. The scaling of that is coming down. But the problem with that is once you burn that commodity, you'll never get it back. So that's the one thing. You can't recover it. Not in our generation, but generations down the road, we'll be mining these landfills to get this stuff back out that we're talking about burying here today, folks.
Okay, thank you everybody so much for coming. Looking at the clock, we'll start to wrap it up unless there's one more person who feels like they want to speak. So again, the Wyoming Outdoor Council convened a stakeholder committee. we've met once after the Lander Forum, and we looked at the ideas that came out of that. And then we are going to again meet next week and look at the ideas that came out of this. And the purpose of having a smaller stakeholder committee is so that folks can really dig into the issues, because obviously we're just sort of collecting ideas tonight. But that's not to say, because this other stakeholder committee is meeting, that all of you could not meet and dig into some of these ideas yourselves. The district board meeting is in Lander at the landfill at 52 BB Road on May 16th. Starts at 9:30 in the morning. So if you do have those conversations and you want to come and share those ideas with the district board, please do that. Those board meetings are open to the public, and you can find contact information for Andy at trashmatters.org. And if you have any questions or you want to call him, it might be better to share some of this information with him before the board meeting as well, so that he has some time to think about it. So with that, if you have any questions or you want to follow up, you can contact me, and I am happy to contact Andy for you, or if you just want to contact Andy, great. But my name, again, is Amber Wilson. I'm with the Wyoming Outdoor Council. We're a nonprofit based in Lander. My contact information is on your agenda. Feel free to call me or send me an email, and I'm happy to help however I can. So with that, thank you guys so much for coming and spending a couple of hours here with us tonight. Have a good evening.